Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Naturia Yugioh deck profile for post-Darkwing Blast. I have waited so long for new Naturia support, so I was definitely excited for this new set, introducing a bunch of new Naturia cards that help the overall playstyle of the deck and help just what the deck was meant to do initially, which is to tribute a bunch of your different Naturia monsters to negate a bunch of stuff that your opponent tries to do against you. There was a lockdown playstyle that I would do for the deck for a good while, but this playstyle definitely does help to utilize a bunch of Naturia monsters that I haven't even, thought to use with the new support we got from the Darkwing Blast set. And I've been having a lot of fun using this deck as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the new Naturia cards, I'm running 3 Naturia Camellia. With this card, if it is normal or special summon, you can send 1 Naturia card from your deck to the graveyard. If you attribute a monster to activate a Naturia monster effect, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard instead. And if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon 1 Naturia monster from your graveyard. You can use each effect of Naturia Camellia once per turn. This is entire setup for your plays, no matter what you try to do with this card. You can send your Naturia Sacred Tree to the graveyard with this card and gain the search off of this trap when sent. You can set up your Naturia Mole Cricket in the graveyard, then just special summon back thanks to Naturia Blessing. You have all these options available to you, and then just more special summon power just by responding to your opponent. Even if this is all you opened up with and you have some hand trap and back row removal, you can at least set up the Mole Cricket in the graveyard, and as soon as your opponent normal summons a monster, use Camellia to special summon it back onto the field thanks to it. It's all that setup and more thanks to this card alone, so it's a definite 3 of in the deck. I also run 3 Naturia Mole Cricket, another one of the new cards. During the main phase, quick effect, you contribute this card to special summon 1 Naturia monster from your deck, or you can special summon 2 if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on the field, even if it's tied. And if your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, or you special summon a Naturia monster from the extra deck, you can special summon a Naturia from the, basically summoning it back from the graveyard onto the field. So whether your opponent summons a monster or you summon out a Naturia monster using your Naturia Mole Cricket even, you can special summon it back onto the field, having a better recovery effect than I would say than Naturia Cliff, because it gives you that option to summon it back onto the field to then use as that tribute resource, since you can only use each effect of Naturia Mole Cricket once per turn. If you set it up in the graveyard, at least for that play, you're ready to go. And with Camellia being your level 4 tuner and Mole Cricket being your level 1, that can be one of the answers to go into Naturia Beast as well with this deck. For the other 3 of that I run for the Naturias in this deck, I run 3 Naturia Yugioh. When your opponent special summons a monster, you can special summon 1 level 3 or lower Naturia monster from your deck. This is not a once per turn, so if you can set up 2 Yugiohs, thanks to the cricket play on the field, being able to special summon 2 Naturia monsters, that can give you special summon after special summon and tribute fodder for all those other ones you may summon on the field. I'll go over a couple of the plays at the end of the video, but Yugioh is a definite 3 of, with just how consistent it can be to get out now, thanks to cards like your Naturia Mole Cricket. And for some of the lower numbers for the Naturias, I also run 2 Naturia Sunflower. When your opponent's monster effect is activated, quick effect, you contribute 1 Naturia monster in this card, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. So this can take care of monster effects, and you really don't have to tribute if you have your Naturia Camellia on the field, since if you attribute a monster, and it says monsters in plural as well, so even if the 2 monsters, you can just send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard once per turn, and that'll cover the tribute effect thanks to this card. You have that option for the first effect with Camellia, but then if you need to use it again, once again, Sunflower is not a once per turn, just as long as you have that tribute. You can negate a second monster effect thanks to Sunflower, just using it for the actual tribute this time around. And for some of the 1-ofs, I do run a good variety of 1-ofs for the additional Naturia monsters in the deck, but that's just because you can easily go through them with the 3-ofs that we run in the deck. You can special summon them out very easily with Yugioh and Mole Cricket, and you can set them up in the graveyard thanks to Camellia with the 3-ofs that we're running. For these 1-ofs, I run 1 Naturia Rose Whip. This card limits your opponent to what they can activate, being able to only activate 1 spell or trap card each turn, and also 1 Naturia Butterfly for the negate attack by just sending the top card of your deck back to the graveyard. 1 Naturia Horn Needle. When your opponent special summons a monster, quick effect, you can tribute 1 other face-up Naturia monster you control to destroy that monster. So with that, you have another destruction play to stop your opponent. 1 Naturia Cosmo Beat for the special summon play, but also just as another level 2 tuner option in the deck to use for the variety of your synchro summons, along with cards like Beast, also being able to summon out your Naturia Barkion, and cards like Naturia Landois also. And for the other one-ofs, I run 1 Naturia Hydrangea for the option of during your turn, if the effect of a Naturia monster was activated on your field, you can special summon this card from your hand. So even if you open up Hydrangea, if you just activate Camellia's effect, you can special summon Hydrangea. The biggest problem, I would say, is when I had cards like Naturia Cherries, Cliff, everything that relied on having your opponent attack into them to gain their monster effects. But having cards like Naturia Camellia, being able just to be normal or special summon and activate their effects, gives me an easier special summon for cards like Naturia Hydrangea. Stinkbug to end the battle phase for another tribute, which you can easily cover with Camellia. Naturia Vane to stop spell and trap effects from activating, just like Sunflower stops monsters. And 1 Naturia Marin for more of the shuffle back option, and then also being able to get draws from it, and more graveyard setup when it's normal summoned. And then for the rest of the monsters for the main deck, just running a small hand trap lineup, so 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and 2 Effect Veilers for the options of stopping your opponent's card effects if you do have to go second up against them. And that is it for the main deck monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. For the new spell in the deck, I'm running 3 copies of Naturia Blessing. This quick play spell is really useful. In the deck, you activate one of these effects. You special summon 1 Naturia monster from your hand or graveyard, and then immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon 1 Naturia synchro monster using monsters you control as material, including a Naturia monster. And then, or you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as material, including a Naturia monster. So the play here is either to get out your synchro play, or to then have the synchro summon of that card on the field be used, or the fusion play to rely on with this card as well. You have all these options for your plays to go into, and then also just be able to set up your synchro play or special summon of a Naturia card. You can get the play set up for your Mole Cricket after you send it with your Camellia to the graveyard, and then the synchro play to go for Naturia Beast, obviously by special summoning it back onto the field with Blessing. It's a 3-of. It's a searchable card with Naturia Sacred Tree. You can send with Camellia to the graveyard, the Sacred Tree, and then just search out Naturia Blessing, being another needed Naturia spell card that we run in the deck. For some of the one-ofs for the spells, and those spells do have a pretty big one-of count because they all just help with the actual play style in the deck. And for those cards, I run 1 for special summoning. You can go for the big discard monster because summoning out Mole Cricket can be the big play against your opponent if they don't stop the special summon and they have a monster with the highest attack on the field. That gives you 2 Naturias on the field, which will also just make up for the 1 discard cost. 1 Monster Gate for another use of those tributes to potentially get out a better monster on the field than one you already have. Monster Reborn to get those resources back. Harpy's Feather Duster to clear back row to make sure you have, room for you to actually use and activate your plays. 1 Foolish Burial for more monster setup in the graveyard, like Mole Cricket, and then relying on a synchro play. Foolish Burial Goods is another way to send Sacred Tree if you don't have the Camellia to the graveyard to get another search. And then 1 Call by the Grave to stop your opponent's hand traps, because if you do go for any of the special summons, like with Monster Gate, or 1 if your opponent tries to Ash Blossom, you definitely do want to stop it by any means necessary. And that's it for the spells. Moving on now to the traps. I run 3 Naturia Sacred Tree. I thought of dropping this to 2 since it's mostly used just for the send effect off of Camellia or Foolish Burial Goods. If you wanted to run just 2 copies of this card, you can always put in another optional Naturia card in the deck, like Naturia Rock, or even increase some of the count for some of your other Naturias you run, like maybe a second copy of Marin or one of the other one-ofs that you could potentially run. You have the option for Rock, and then just some of the other negate options in the deck as well, but that's more player preference there. I do like having the option with us running more plant and insect monsters to have the tag out effect if this card is in your hand, but most of the time, like I said, it's just a sent to the graveyard search effect. And then lastly, the 3 Infinite Impermanence for more monster effect negation if you do go second against your opponent, so you have this card to rely on as well. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck for the synchro monsters. I run 1 Naturia Beast for the spell negation. More graveyard setup just by milling. It's not a once per turn. You have a good way to stop the majority of spells your opponent may try to activate. Same with Naturia Barkion, giving you more of a play setup for stopping traps by banishing cards from your graveyard. 1 Naturia Landois. Now, what I like about Landois is you do have a pretty good spell lineup to have for the negation, and then having more of a search power by just being able to utilize the spells for the monster negate in your hand thanks to Landois. And also 1 Leo, Keeper of the Secret Tree. I know it's not a Naturia monster, but is still a pretty good synchro monster to rely on for protection on the field thanks to your Naturia cards. And lastly, for the synchros, I run 1 Morphtronic Earfawn as a level 4 synchro option to go into. We do run some option cards to go into, like Sunflower and Cosmobeat, or Antjaw and Cosmobeat into this card, and then being able to equip this card from your field onto another synchro monster, being able to attack with cards like Beast or Barkion twice against your opponent, or even your play for that, except for Leo, because you have to activate during the main phase 2, but then being able to attack twice with him is a pretty powerful attack combo also. For the fusion monsters, I run 1 Naturia Exterio and 1 Gaiastrio. You have the Gaiastrio during either player's turn where a card or effect is activated that targets exactly 1 card on the field. You can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, destroy it, and Exterio being able to negate spell or traps by sending the top card of your deck to the graveyard and banishing 1 card also. You have these fusion plays available to you quite easily thanks to the new Naturia Blessing card to go into. And for the Xyz monsters, I run 1 Baguska for field control until you can have a better setup, 1 Abyss Dweller, and 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus. The Camellia being a level 4 and then having a couple other level 4 options is why I run the rank 4 plays to go into. I thought of increasing the link options, maybe like a Link Karibo, but still, most of the time I am going into synchro plays, and a lot of other times I'm not even really relying on the extra deck. I'm just relying on the negates that my Naturia monsters can use on the field to stop my opponent's initial plays and then decide what extra deck monsters I want to go into. With the other Link monsters, Halqifibrax is now banned, so instead of it, I am running 1 Aromaseraphy Jasmine. So you have the plant search by tributing a monster on the field and being able to protect this card and your other plant monsters it points to, but just being able to tribute a monster and special summon a plant monster from my deck means I can easily get access to cards like Naturia Camellia on the field also. Plus, I also run 1 Nightmare Phoenix for spell and trap destruction, Cerberus for monster destruction, 1 Unicorn for just being able to shuffle back cards, and 1 Access Code Talker, so I have a big boss monster to go into to finish off the final play against my opponents. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, like I said, the new support definitely does help with a good majority of these cards. Just being able to normal summon Naturia Camellia and set up the card play that you may need in your graveyard. It all comes down to what already you have in your hand. If you have Naturia Blessing in your hand, then what you can send off of the Camellia is your Mole Cricket, because then you'll set up the Mole Cricket in your graveyard. You will activate Naturia Blessing, special summoning the Mole Cricket onto the field, and then you will go for the synchro play using the 2 to summon out your Naturia Beast. You will then activate the effect of the Mole Cricket in the graveyard to special summon this card out onto the field. And then remember with the tribute play with Mole Cricket, it all depends on what your opponent summons out onto the field. If they somehow manage to get out and you still feel safe to not activate the tribute effect first, a monster that has more attack than Naturia Beast, you can then tribute the Mole Cricket and special summon 2 Naturia monsters, and it doesn't say 2 Naturia monsters with different names. So then you can get access to 2 Antjaw on the field, and this is where I recommend summoning out your Naturia Beast in the extra monster zone, because then if your opponent only summoned out 1 monster, they'll either want to attack into one of the Antjaws that are on the field already, or continue their summoning plays. And with Antjaw, when your opponent special summons a monster, you can special summon another monster onto the field, and both of the Antjaws will activate. So because of this, you'll get your special summon of a level 3 or lower Naturia. So thanks to the Antjaw, you can summon out a Sunflower just from 1 special summon using both of them. You have Sunflower, and then 1 additional card. You get out cards like Rose Whip to control the set play there, and you can even use the special summon of Antjaw to get out an additional Mole Cricket onto the field to use later also. Filling up your field quite fast with both activating is why, once again, I also recommend just summoning out the Beast in the extra monster zone to have your main monster zone full of monsters to special summon off of the 2 Antjaw. some of the other plays you can rely on is going for the Naturia Camellia play again, and then sending the Naturia Sacred Tree to the graveyard. This will then allow you to at least activate the play you want to go for with this card. And if you have another Naturia card in your hand, you can send the option to your graveyard to go into. Being able to send the Sacred Tree will let you add any Naturia cards. You can add the Naturia Blessing to your hand, and then depending on what you have in your hand, you can activate this, special summoning it out to the field, and then with that is your additional synchro play. You can use cards like Antjaw you summon out to go into Barkion. If you summon out any of the other adjusted levels, having a level 4 Camellia on the field gives you access to plenty of monsters to use. If you have the Marin, there's a Landoise play. If you have some other Naturia monster, even just summoning out Camellia and getting that search means you activated that card and allowing you to special summon other cards from your hand like your Naturia Hydrangea. It means that a lot of the one-ofs that we're running aren't really dead draws in the deck. They just allow you to activate and use many of the plays. And with that, you have a lot to go off of, because even if you just open up Mole Cricket, you have a 0 attack point monster. So regardless, whatever monster your opponent summons, if it has more attack than just 0, you can go for the Mole Cricket Tribute and get 2 additional Naturia cards on the field, with one of them even being Naturia Camellia, and one of the other negates you can use to go up against your opponent, with one of those cards even just being your Naturia Sunflower, and having to avoid the tribute of this card for the first monster effect by just being able to mill the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, I was very excited for this deck, so I couldn't wait to do a deck profile for it with the new Darkwing Blast support. And I hope you all enjoyed it as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.